Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are getting up and just feeling awesome this morning and having a great start to your day. Having a great last week of the year. It's pretty incredible how fast this year just went by. Seems like the older I get, the more just time flies. And I'm sure a lot of you folks who are older than I am, I'm 31 years old, can certainly agree with that. The older you get, the more just time flies. So just trying to soak in as much time as possible with my little girls and my family as time just keeps on moving by. But I got you an update on what's going on specifically for today in the weather world. We're going to break this down. Not a super active day, but we're going to just talk about a couple things and break it down for each specific region for most of the country. And I just want to throw this out there really quick. I got a new mic coming. We're going to steadily start to bring new upgrades to this channel. I haven't made huge upgrades in the last, I would say, year and some change, just due to the fact that I'm kind of stagnant as far as making upgrades because, as you can already tell, I make these videos in my bedroom. I need to get a green screen up, but in the future, we plan on remodeling our house, but of course that's just not an easy snap. Okay, I'm going to do this. That, takes a lot of money. So hopefully in the future, I'm talking about in a couple years down the road, we're going to make an addition to our house and replace our back porch with an actual addition so I can actually have a room to the house that's just designated for this YouTube channel and just for different things, even for the kids and things like that. And I'm looking forward to that. But at the same time, I just realized that this is a process and I'm trying to just be patient, and I'm going to continue to be patient and just understand that wherever God leads me with this, that's where I'm going to roll. At certain times, I think anybody gets really impatient with certain things when you want to reach a goal. But I'm just continuing just to remind myself, and God continues to remind me that this is a process, and we'll get there when it's time to get there. So I got a new mic coming, though. I'm going to at least upgrade my mic. I've had a couple comments. It's been very nice. With some, not some complaints necessarily, but just mentioning that, hey, your mic sounds kind of rough. So this is only a $30 mic. We're going to upgrade to an $80 mic and see how it sounds for you folks. Should have that in the next couple days. And we'll try to make the audio sound a little bit better in these videos. But I'm not sure if I said this, but if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And more importantly, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. Let's get rolling this morning. Taking a look at satellite out here, the west is very active and the east has pretty much calmed down for now. Pretty much the storm track has totally changed. You got a lot of Pacific energy kind of jolting down into the southwest down here, southwest U.S., and it's flying across the middle of the country, and then it rounds off and then kind of rounds this ridge that is now built and it continues to build over the eastern U.S., and our temperatures will quickly begin to moderate. I would not be surprised if folks in Texas and areas of Oklahoma might nip 80 degrees today. Pretty incredible considering about 5 or 6 days ago, your certain areas were below zero. So it just tells you how quick this pattern is flipping. It's flipping right now as I speak. And, look at the southeast. I mean, it's pretty quiet. Maybe some kind of high clouds, a little bit of fog, but regardless, it looks like a beautiful day setting up for the south. You still got some hard freeze warnings, some frost advisories pretty deep into north central Florida. Some wind alerts out here, but, many alerts out west where it's very active. The storm track is pretty much right over the west. So higher elevations seeing a lot of snow, lower elevations a lot of rain. Not a lot of cold air out west necessarily, but just an active storm track. But let's break down what we're going to see from each region to region. Southeast, high pressure right over here. So you got a flow that just is rounding this high pressure. So you got a little moisture kind of shooting out the Gulf of Mexico. And so if you're in Mobile, Alabama, kind of the panhandle of Florida, especially the western panhandle of Florida, maybe some showers, try to move off the Gulf inland into these regions. But outside of that, maybe some sprinkles or showers in the southern Alabama, same kind of deal in southeast and eastern sections of Texas and southern Louisiana. But outside of that, pretty quiet weather today. Very, very quiet weather, and we continue to warm up. And the humidity continues to increase too. Still dealing with a little bit of cooler air in the southeast, especially from North Georgia to the southeast and, Tennessee, points north. Still only, 50s for highs, but this is typically of just average highs in like January. I think it'll still be a couple degrees below average for certain areas, but look at Florida. Warming back up into the 60s and 70s for highs. Louisiana, Mississippi. Basically, the further west you work, the warmer it is. The entire state of Louisiana, 60s and 70s for highs. So we've made a complete transition for these areas. It's still going to remain pretty chilly in Virginia, West Virginia, points north, but it'll even start to warm up for you folks. The Northeast, an area of snow making its way into the far northern sections of New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So just a light coating of snow, maybe an inch or two at most. This will continue to make it through. The storm track is just jolted north. So you're warming up in these areas. It's still cold, but nothing crazy compared to average. Nothing below average, really, as a ridge continues to move into the eastern U.S. and really already has. And this continues, and we'll have another area, maybe some snow, maybe moves into northern sections of Vermont and New Hampshire, but to the overnight hours. And then maybe as we get into the overnight hours, more snow moves into Maine. And this is kind of when Maine, especially northern Maine, gets a lot of their snow, is when a lot of people down here to the south are warmer than average. Maine, when the storm track kind of moves north, gets a lot of just rounds of light to moderate snow in these kind of setups. But anyways, pretty quiet. We're starting to thaw out. I noticed in my video yesterday morning, I kept saying unthaw, which is the opposite of thaw, but you're thawing out, trying to think of when we put our chicken or meat out to thaw out. And somebody corrected me in the comments, was really nice about it, and was like, hey man, you put unthaw. You kept saying unthaw. I meant to say we're thawing out. That means that we're going to get some snow melt and ice melt out there. It was pretty wild, guys. I was driving home from work yesterday, and it got pretty warm here in my neck of the woods, got all the way into the low 50s, but it was pretty wild looking at some local ponds. We got a lot of small ponds in and around the area of the Midlands, and just how even, when it was about 48 degrees driving home yesterday morning, it's just still had a thin layer of ice. A lot of these ponds, even down here in South Carolina, which is very rare, were beginning to ice over. It was pretty wild. And I saw a video out of Huntsville, Alabama, where a little very small 10-foot area of water had froze over, and this little kid was just ice skating on it in Huntsville, Alabama. So it happens. It happens every once in a while. I think the last time you saw it happening was kind of early 2018, but it's pretty crazy in the South when you can get some ponds that start to freeze over, but it never lasts long. I'm hearing the western tip of Lake Erie is beginning to freeze up, but I think that the process of it freezing up is going to kind of slow, if not stop, with this warm up coming into the area. But we start to thaw out for the Northeast. So some snow melts, and this will be warm compared to what we felt over the last several days. The South Central U.S., pretty quiet. Unless you get into Colorado and New Mexico, and then you get a lot of active weather. A lot of people, I get a comment almost every other day saying, why do you not cover the weather out west? Or correlates Mitch West weather to me covering weather out the west. Guys, I'll be honest, straight up. I just don't talk about the weather out west. And that's something I hope to do in the future when I have time to do it. But one, I'm not comfortable doing it. I don't want to just jump on here and just show you a bunch of colors and say, hey, it's raining and it's snowing in the Rockies in Colorado. There's going to be some high winds in these areas. I would like to learn more about the West and just all the microclimates. You could be in a valley and it's raining and you never see snow. And for example, like in California, you can be in a valley, and you hardly ever see snow, but then you can only drive, 30 minutes up the road and you're like 5, 6, 7, 8,000 feet up in the air and you're seeing snow. So, you have to get very detailed, much more detailed about areas, because you can't talk about things like a widespread area like you do in the central and eastern U.S., where you do have mountains, but you get what I'm saying. It's a much different geographical feature out here in the eastern U.S. than it is the western U.S. But in the future, I hope to do that. I really do. That is a plan. I have a lot of plans, but I'm not going to force it just so I can get more views and things like that. So I do apologize, and thank y'all for people who do view, for folks out west that view anyways. And it's just not an area that I have a lot of time to cover as of now, but I hope to do it in the future. But anyways, back to weather here. The South Central U.S., you might have a disturbance, some snow moving into eastern Colorado. Might be too warm. In fact, I think it will be too warm for western Kansas into the overnight hours. But outside of that, not a big deal at all. But I can tell you, is for my folks In Louisiana, far eastern Texas, southern sections of Mississippi, as we get into the overnight hours, some showers, maybe some heavier bursts of rain start to move through these sections right here. And this is so by the time you're waking up tomorrow morning, you might be dealing with some shower activity for the Mississippi Valley all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And really, this is just because of the return of the moisture. I mean, look at dew points this morning. You're in the 30s and 40s. It's still pretty dry air. Nothing as dry as what we've seen. But look at these dew points climbing into the 50s. Your dew points into the 60s down in Houston, and just a huge sector of moist air begins to build as we get into the evening hours. You'll notice a little bit more moisture in the air as far north as Dallas, Shreveport, even maybe Little Rock, Jackson, Mississippi. Just more moist air starting to get yanked into the picture as this ridge builds. And you have pieces of energy that flies across the middle of the country that helps to pull this flow out the south that pulls more moist air out the Gulf of Mexico. So you'll notice the uptick in humidity for some of these southern Gulf states, especially the southern sections of these Gulf states. But look at the temperatures for today, folks. These are high temperatures for today, potentially. You're going to get close to 70 in Dallas, close to 70 in Oklahoma City. But look in this area of southwest Oklahoma and this area right here of Texas. Somebody's going to hit 80 degrees today. And that's just wild considering the fact of how cold we were just a few days ago. But Kansas, 50s and 60s for highs. Even probably a 60-degree reading will get into Nebraska today. But very warm temperatures climbing into the south central U.S. Pretty wild to see considering the fact of what we just dealt with. The north central U.S., maybe some freezing drizzle out there in certain areas of the country, but even you folks are starting to warm up. Some areas will get above freezing. You'll get some snow melt in the UP of Michigan, in Wisconsin and Minnesota. You'll start to hear the dripping beginning as we're getting into the afternoon hours, but it's not going to get well above freezing or anything, but it still gets into the mid to upper 30s for these sections. And look at these 50s climbing into western Illinois, into Missouri. Some 60-degree readings will climb into the state, and it's certainly warming back up for a lot of folks. The only areas that remain below freezing are these sections of Dakotas, of North Dakota and northern Minnesota up here, and some pockets of sub-freezing temperatures in Michigan and Wisconsin. But it's pretty wild how we flipped the pattern. And here it is. Speaking of the pattern, you see the blue and then the red out here. Basically, this stands for just an active pattern. You got multiple low pressures riding over the western U.S., some average to slightly below average temperatures in the western U.S., and then above average temperatures beginning to build with this ridge building into the eastern U.S. So we'll give you kind of an update on some updated information tonight and try to continue to figure out what we can expect as we round off this year. And then we get into the new year because we're starting to get close enough to really figure it out. And then we'll start to steadily take a peek of when winter will return. But it's hard to focus in on that too much when we have some things right in front of us that we need to really talk about, which is the potential for some severe weather for areas just after the new year. So that's all I got. You guys have an awesome day, and I'll be with you guys this evening. God bless.